from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
The U.S. halts beef imports from Brazil as American beef heads to China, and agribusiness prepping for the week ahead.
Well, I think last week was a week that a lot of us would just soon forget.
Machinery Pete is pricing pre-emission tractors, and this small country town in Oregon is prepping for a big event in the sky.
Agday, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. After months of turmoil in the Brazilian beef industry, now shipments to the U.S. are frozen and Brazilian leadership is headed for Washington. The U.S. Department of Agriculture announcing it is halting imports of fresh Brazilian beef, and that suspension will remain in place until the Brazilian Ministry of Ag takes corrective action and that USDA finds satisfactory. FSIS has refused entry to 11% of Brazilian fresh beef products, or nearly 2 million pounds since March. That figure substantially higher than the rejection rate of 1% from the rest of the world. The president of Brazil's Meat Exporters Association telling media outlets the problems are due to a reaction to some components of a foot and mouth disease vaccine that Brazil is using, and it has become visible, those reactions, to U.S. inspections. FMD has been a sensitive issue for the industry all along.
But we still have some concerns over foot and mouth disease. You know, the virus that causes foot and mouth disease can travel on fresh and frozen product. And unfortunately, right now, our own government does not have an adequate vaccine supply in order to protect us. So we are working with the House and Senate Ag Committee and with USDA to try to figure out how we fix that situation.
Brazil is the world's largest exporter of beef and poultry and the fourth largest exporter of pork. Now, late last week, Brazil's ag minister announcing plans to travel to Washington, saying they will fight for this market. Meanwhile, China let through the first shipments of U.S. beef on Friday, the first in 14 years. Now, according to Reuters, the imports were brought in by Kofco Meat Holdings Limited from processor Tyson Foods. China officially restarting U.S. beef imports earlier this month. The latest cattle on feed report showing numbers are up 3% compared to a year ago. The June 1st inventory total coming in at 11.1 million head. Placements into feedlots rose 12%, while marketings were 9% higher. All of those were above trade expectations. The bearish tone could see placements continue to rise as cattle get moved off summer pasture due to drought conditions in the northern plains. Also in cattle, USDA's cold storage report showing frozen stocks of red meat declining, while dairy stocks are mixed. Red meat supplies down about 5% from the previous month and 7% lower than last year. Pounds of beef, well, they were off more than 10% from last year, while pork supplies not seeing as much of a decline, only down 4%. When it comes to dairy, butter stocks, they were down 3% from last year. A possible dicamba ban is headed to Arkansas, Governor Asa Hutchinson's desk after the state's plant board voting to recommend an emergency ban. If Hutchinson signs the recommendation, the proposed ban heads to the executive subcommittee of the Arkansas Legislative Council for another vote. This comes after the state received more than 200 complaints from Arkansas farmers about alleged dicamba drift this season. Syngenta losing the first class action lawsuit out of 8 over its Agrisure Viptera corn trait. The jurors in Kansas City siding with more than 7,000 Kansas farmers on Friday, requiring Syngenta to pay $217 million in damages. The farmers claiming they lost money due to China rejecting corn containing the Viptera trait in 2013. That trait was not yet approved in China. Syngenta says it plans to appeal the decision. USDA says less than half of the nation's winter wheat condition in the top 18 producing states is rated good to excellent. Those conditions are showing in key wheat producing states like Kansas and Oklahoma, while Indiana, not considered a large wheat producer, 69% of the wheat in the Hoosier state is rated good to excellent. Grain elevators there prepping for harvest and say they are not expecting a large vomitoxin issue in the areas despite the wet spring.
The wheat crop has looked good in the fields here. And I think those producers that have managed it well and used fungicide applications and so forth, I think they're going to be happy with yields and quality.
We did have to spray for army worms. There was a lot of insects out there because of, I think, the mild winter. But the wheat withstood the spring weather pretty good. It looks good out there. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to get a good crop.
Silver says wheat acres are down from last year in the state, all due to price. David Harker from Agday affiliate WNDU is in for Mike Hoffman today, has our crop comments. Good morning, David.
Thanks, Clinton. I know our viewers in the northern plains are waiting on rain, but farmers in other areas are throwing up the white flag. Jason Scott thinks the saying rain makes grain should turn to rain takes grain. He's in Burroughs, Indiana, just can't catch a break this year. He saw more rain last week and says bags of replant beans are sitting in the shop now for 2 weeks. But the fields aren't drying out, so they can't get to the field to finish up. And our friends north of the border are battling Mother Nature as well. Steve in southwestern Ontario. It looks like he's putting up hay, and it came to an abrupt halt this week. Now, he jokingly said it may be a couple hours before the fields of hay are ready to bale. They could use a healthy dose of sunshine this week. Let's take a look at our temperature map, and you notice on the screen a lot of the country above normal in the next 30 days. Looks like we're going to see a lot of heat return to the entire country. I'll have more in the forecast, but first, your hometown temps.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com. Offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search, let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
All right, when we come back, we'll have our weekly roundtable discussion about the trading week ahead, plus Machinery Pete.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about 4 older pre-emission tractors that sold for really strong prices last week at auction.
And later, this small town's prepping for a big event not seen for decades. The story from Oregon, later on Agday.
Get the roots your crops need by getting Radiate first. Visit lovelandproducts.com/radiate. See your CPS dealer today.
Agribusiness, let's see how markets close from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
It's been a very volatile week. Let's start off with live cattle. Live cattle, especially in the cash market, had a precipitous drop, about $10 to $13 lower in the cash market, pulled down prices sharply there as well. We are at 2-month lows in cattle after having a great rally from the beginning of the year till about 6 weeks ago. We've basically given half of that back. Of course, there was the story in the news about JBS having to, they're going to close 5 of their plants. That's about 1 million head at least in cattle that is going to be no longer, accounted for. And the third thing, one of the largest trading firms in the country was fined a little over $5 million for trying to corner the market on the long side. So busy week for cattle. Switching over very briefly to lean hogs. Lean hogs have been on a great rally. They've stalled out. You started to see the spreads get very volatile and start to widen out there in the back months. And it could be a sign that we've come too far too fast, and you may have some rollover sympathy selling with the live cattle and feeder cattle. But this week we saw sharp losses in especially corn and soybeans. 11 days ago, corn was at a 1-year high. We went from a 1-year high to an 8-month low, testing the year's lows in 11 days. And all of the rally that we had in corn, about a 30-cent rally, has disappeared. So pretty depressing if you're a corn producer and you were hoping for, corn to get above that 420, 430 level. We got to 409 in new crop corn, and it's just falling apart. That's about it. Have a great weekend. This is Chris Robinson.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, I have Matt Bennett and Elaine Cubb joining me for a quick look at the start of this week. So as we prepare for this week, what did you learn last week as far as markets go, and what can we think about this week? Matt, we'll start with you.
Well, I think last week was a week that a lot of us would just soon forget. And so
right.
Hopefully this week will go a little bit better. We've got quite a bit going on. Most people expect that the conditions report for both corn and soybeans will improve just a little bit, at least a little bit. But the more important thing this week, of course, is acreage. And I think going into the acreage report, I think a lot can happen. The lean probably for most people is maybe a little less corn acres and a little more soybean acres. Anytime there's a strong lean, though, I get a little skeptical that we could have a real big market move. But I think the more bearish part of the report for me is probably going to be the stocks. Part of the report is what people are expecting to be bearish.
Okay, Elaine, what do you think?
I think that's just it. We learned that despite the fundamental concerns about yield out in the countryside, the speculative side of the market has still just been very bearish, willing to keep on selling and keep on taking prices lower. And I think all through this week, going towards this stocks report and the acreage report, we could continue to see that kind of bearish activity.
Yeah, do you think we're going to switch any acres, more beans or more corn, or how What's your thought?
Possibly. I mean, just on the sort of the windshield tour that you take around the Corn Belt, you do see a lot of replanting, and that's the idea, is that you get 1 million more acres towards soybean just because of the schedule and the weather, that the spring weather that we had led to a lot of that replanting.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think about these cattle markets as we start a week? I mean, the last week to 10 days has just been pretty volatile and maybe pretty heavily negative.
Yeah, absolutely. We've lost some serious ground. I think that in the short term, I don't know that I think that we're going to completely bounce back. Nothing like we saw earlier. One thing I guess that has been nice to me for a lot of these producers is they had a window where they could actually put some floors under the market and have a fair amount of profit locked in. And so hopefully producers decided to step in and do that. If they didn't, it's a pretty tough road to hoe right now, because it's really tough to be showing a lot of profit with any sort of an investment in a risk management policy.
Well, you think the same?
Yeah, there were great opportunities there for a couple of months when the producers were in control, and now the packers are definitely the ones in the catbird seat, and they're punishing the rest of the market. And I see the feeder cattle market fall out even worse than the live cattle market, and I don't know if that's perhaps related to some of that dry weather and dry range conditions.
Yeah, moving a lot of cattle to the market right now. Appreciate you both being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day. Just a minute.
For advice on the best way to be profitable on your farm, contact Matt at 217-273-1133. For more marketing advice, you can find Elaine's book, Mastering the Grain Markets: How Profits Are Really Made, on Amazon and elsewhere.
Visit FarmJournalPro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. FarmJournalPro.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. David Harker in for Mike Hoffman this week. So David, we look at the jet stream to start Monday. It looks to me like there could be some systems moving through the middle of the country.
Yeah, especially the Midwest, likely to see a lot more precipitation, and that's going to be the case as we look at least the next 7 to 10 days out. And we're likely to see that precipitation continue to be the case across the northern tier of the United States, mainly in the Great Lakes, as just mentioned, and toward the northeast, while a drying trend, at least for the start of the week, down in the desert southwest. Notice as we get to the middle of the week on Wednesday that we've more or less got this lateral pattern, which means mainly calm conditions by Wednesday and more of that lateral flow. As we transition to Friday, notice another dip in the jet stream, another system providing precipitation to the Dakotas, something that wouldn't be a bad thing to some locations of the entire United States, but others, as we just showed you in our Crop Watch segment, not needing any more showers. So let's take a look at the conditions for this week. We're going to start out with temperatures basically along and off to the east of the Mississippi River, dealing with below normal temperatures. And as we've already seen in weeks past, up in the desert southwest, it is still heating up, above normal temperatures likely, and that will continue out into northern California, into Nevada and the Pacific Northwest. When we talk precipitation above normal in some locations of the upper Midwest, I'd expect the heavier amounts of rain showers to probably be closer to Canada, as well as in Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin. Down in the southeastern portion of the United States, below normal on the precipitation side, same out in the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon. 30 days out, you'll likely notice above normal temperatures across a good portion of the United States. Some of the spots that will see the highest temperatures out in the desert southwest, Four Corners region, as well as Florida and the Northeast. When we talk precipitation 30 days out, most of the country seems to be equal chances of below and above normal. So we have the couple spots, one up to the north there in Montana, as well as Four Corners region below normal. While you're in the tropics, boy, it could be getting a little wet down in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So it's just a matter of time before we find out, and hopefully in some areas dry back out as well. So let's take a look at conditions in a few locations. We're going to start out in Nebraska, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, that is. Sunny, dry, and warm. We're looking for highs near 85. Out toward Mississippi there in Clarksdale, hoping to get some dry conditions, and it will be humid too with a high of 85. And out toward Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, chance of showers and 70s.
When we come back, Machinery Pete joins us to talk about pre-emission tractor sales, and later, small towns all over rural America are prepping for the big business a pending eclipse is expected to bring. Our friend Greg Peterson's been touring auctions in Iowa lately, and of course, he's tracking trends, including sales of pre-emission tractors. Greg?
I want to talk about 2 auctions last Wednesday in central Iowa that had 4 really nice John Deere tractors, slightly older. Now, in Marshalltown, Iowa, this 1989 John Deere 4955, 3,214 hours on it, sold for $55,000. Now that's the highest auction price I've seen on a 4955 in 4 years. Same sale had this 97 model Deere 8200, had 2,902 hours on it, went for $77,000. And that is the second highest auction price I've seen in 5 years on an 8200. Now, same day last Wednesday, but over in Nevada, Iowa, this 1982 John Deere 4440, 5,725 hours, quad range, sold for $30,000. And that is the 11th 4440 sold for $30,000 or more that I've seen the last 21 months at auction. And also on that sale was this beautiful 1990 John Deere 4455, 4,991 hours on it, went for $56,500. So very strong sale price there. Now when I posted these pictures, videos, and blog on our machinerypete.com website last week, someone asked me, Pete, is this a vote for the pre-emission tractor? Well, I don't think there's any question. Yes, it is, if they're super nice condition, low-houred, and well cared for like these four. You can see the buyer demand. And it doesn't matter if they're green, red, blue, or orange.
When we come back, how much would you rent out pasture for so strangers could watch the sky? We're off to Oregon, where the price tag may surprise you. That story's next.
Visit FarmJournalPro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. FarmJournalPro.com.
In the country. Brought to you by Kubota. See the all-new Commander Pro zero-turn mower at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
There's a total solar eclipse crossing the continental United States on August 21st, and small towns all across the lower 48 are prepping for the event, including Oregon. The town of Madras and Jefferson County are expected to be some of the best viewing locations because of their high desert atmosphere. Gillian Flacus reports.
In the shadow of Mount Jefferson, the tiny town of Madras is bracing for a monumental event. Oregon will be the first point in the U.S. to see the solar eclipse on August 21st, and up to 1 million tourists are expected statewide. Madras is a key destination.
The sun will be coming directly east of here, and the eclipse itself is directly west.
Experts say the high desert location means almost no chance of clouds, and a flat landscape will make it easy to watch as the moon casts a shadow on Earth for more than 2 minutes. But with more than 100,000 people expected in and around a town with a population of just 6,500, logistics can be daunting.
What we've asked our residents to do is get prepared ahead of time. About a week out, get their groceries, fuel up on propane, gas, whatever fuels they need, get their prescriptions, go to the doctor, do what you need to do, and then stay home.
Lisa Vattimo was hired as the town's eclipse planner. She's involved in everything, from bringing in cell towers and shuttle buses for the rural roads, to making sure businesses have enough cash on hand.
Table 4 is out.
The Black Bear Diner expects 1,000 guests a day leading up to the eclipse. Owner Joe Davis says he's ordered 5 weeks of food for 1 week of business.
This will be by far the busiest week and probably double what our busiest week ever has been.
I have nothing for monthly rentals for August, nothing.
Across town, Misty Cox and her husband are providing nearly 700 portable toilets. They were first contacted by local tourism officials 2 years ago.
They said, we want everything you have, don't rent to anyone, we want everything you have.
They had to borrow from as far away as Idaho.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Business is also looking up for Christina Carpenter. She and her husband are renting out camping spaces on their organic farm.
Oh, wow. One taste.
Prices start at nearly $1,000 for a 4-day event.
We have about 200 reservations at this point, and I feel really comfortable in doubling that.
And with the majority of tourists expected to be camping, the U.S. Forest Service is worried about the influx during peak wildfire season.
Just driving off-road, having that contact with a hot muffler or a catalytic converter could start an ignition.
First responders are making plans for how to evacuate tens of thousands of people and get fire engines down narrow roads likely to be at a standstill. Amid all the activity, 80-year-old Darlene Hoffman hasn't lost sight of the wonder. She's one of the few here who has seen a total solar eclipse before. 38 years ago.
It was really something to see. It really was. That amazed me more than anything.
Sharing old memories and creating new ones under the shadow of a Madras moon. Gillian Flackis, Associated Press, Madras, Oregon.
And there you have it. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you started your week with us. For David Harker and Betsy Gibbon, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in Farm Country.
Agday is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups.